thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate you, and really appreciate Cindy Vo and Daniel Eng for inviting us to come and speak a little bit about a super interesting topic. I think in real estate law that I think is going to be a bigger, will take a bigger, place in real estate as we move forward and the laws get more defined and challenged by the courts and things like that. So yeah, really super interested and happy to share this information with you as well. So all right, so um, we are here today to talk about same-sex marriage and how that impacts how we practice real estate in Texas, okay, and also title insurance as well, okay. So the purpose of this class is to introduce the real estate professionals to a relatively new issue of same-sex marriages and the implications in the title insurance and closing process. Okay, so when I say new, okay, I'm saying new because it's relatively new to Texas in law. I'm not saying it's new, a new concept or a new idea, because we all know that that's not true. Okay. All right. So the key point, if you walk away from this class, I want you to remember just one thing today, please. Okay. So we're going to talk about a lot of issues. We're going to talk about a lot of laws. Okay. But what I want you to remember is that any property right afforded to a heterosexual couple will apply and does apply to same-sex couples as well. Okay, so if you're dealing with a same-sex couple who is a seller, you're going to treat them both as sellers, not as two different individuals. If you're going to work with buyers, you're going to treat them as married buyers. Okay, so in the loan process, you'll treat them as husband and husband, or wife and wife. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and why that's important and how to recognize that too if they are not officially married. Okay, under a marriage license. Okay, so that'll be coming up as well. All right, so a little bit of history. The first state to recognize same-sex marriages was Hawaii in 1993. Officially, their state government,
Surprisingly, right?
yeah, surprisingly
Hawaii.
recognized Hawaii and recognized same-sex marriages. Okay, but after that, as you know, each state can make their own laws about same-sex marriages, and each state started to do that. Okay, so there was a period of time after Hawaii legalized same-sex marriages where all these states started to step in. Okay, same-sex marriages are legal. Same-sex marriages are not legal. Same-sex marriages are legal in certain areas or certain with certain backgrounds, and some are not. So there was a wide disparity in the way that the United States was defining same-sex marriages as either legal or not legal. And so at that point, it became just a fractured country. And so in situations like that, that's when the legislature, the federal government can step in and create a law, and that's exactly what they did um, to sort of sort out all those issues. So in 1996, under surprisingly, the legislature issued the Defense of Marriage Act. Okay, and that's a law that specifically defined marriage as the union of one man and one woman, which allowed individual states to not recognize same-sex marriages that were performed and recognized under other states' law. So that became the law of the land. Okay, so now all those states that had laws that said same-sex marriages were legal now got overturned. Okay, so as you can tell, whenever that kind of thing happens, people sue, okay, and litigate, and it takes some time, and these cases get heard before the Supreme Court of the United States, and that's exactly what happened. There were two really important cases that came after that. First one was United States versus Windsor, okay, and that in that case, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down DOMA's, the Defense of Marriage Act's definition of marriage as only being between one man and one woman. Okay, so that got obliterated. Okay, so now, so if you can imagine this, okay, you've got all of this, you've got the federal government saying one thing, you've got the states saying one thing, and now you have the Supreme Court saying one thing as well. So it's just a super confusing time. Okay, but this was such an important case because the Supreme Court gets under its authority and power. They review the legislature, okay, their laws, and they get to say whether or not it's legal or it's not legal. Okay, and so they said that that definition of marriage is not proper and illegal. Okay, so then that made so if you can imagine, so then that made same-sex marriages, those states with same-sex marriages legal again. Okay, so it's a confusing time. Just as important, there was another case.
I'm already confused.
Yeah, yeah, Obergefell versus Hodges. Okay, and this one stated that the same-sex marriages were constitutionally protected under a variety of clauses in the Constitution. Okay, so now so after those two cases, the definition of marriage is now not just between a man and a woman, it can be between man and man, woman and woman, plus, okay, same-sex marriages are constitutionally legal. Okay, so there's that determination as well. All right, so what about Texas? Okay, how does this affect us? Okay, so the way that my conclusion, and I think a lot of legal scholars' conclusion now, is same-sex marriages are legal in the United States. Any state that tries to say that it is not legal, okay, that law will get struck down because we have these two overarching US Supreme Court cases that lay out the definition of same-sex marriage and also says that every state in the United States has to recognize each other state's laws that say same-sex marriage is legal as well. Okay, little confusing, but the law of the land as it sits right now is same-sex marriages are legal, and if you get married in another state and move to Texas, Texas has to recognize that marriage as a same-sex legal same-sex marriage as well. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. But how about marriages, same-sex marriages that occurred prior to 2015, which was the Obergefell case? Okay. Are they still legal now? Okay. So there is language in that case law that says yes, same-sex marriages that were done in states that allowed for same-sex marriages are still legal today. Okay. So, but how does that affect us here in Texas? Okay. So that means we have to recognize those cases as being legal. Okay. If you get married in another state, then that is legal as well. Another important factor and issue to look at in same-sex marriage cases are whether or not these same-sex couples, okay, are common law married. Okay, so Texas has a common law that says if you are in an agreement to be married, you live together as a married couple, you hold yourselves out to be married, you tell your friends that you're married, you file joint tax returns, you
joint accounts.
yeah, joint accounts and things like that. Okay, Texas will recognize that same-sex couple as being a married couple as well. Okay, so
That's common law.
that is the common law, correct? Yeah, go ahead if you have any questions.
Is there like a number, like 7 years of continuing to act in the same situation? that says
6
someone
months.
got married after this?
Is it 6 months?
6 months.
Yeah, yeah. So that's super interesting to me. So So how does this apply to us? So let's say you've got a same-sex couple buyer who wants to do a loan. Okay, and I'm not sure, but do you underwrite loans differently for two individuals that are maybe sort of two couples that are dating versus two couples or a couple that is married? Are there different underwriting guidelines for things like that?
It all depends how they declare themselves.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like, well, in California, it's different.
Yeah.
California is more liberal on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they declare that, oh, this is my wife,
Uh-huh.
and they have to fill out the penalty the way they want.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
have to take it
As it is. Okay. All right. So that's great. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
When you said living together, not necessarily officially married, is considered married.
Yes. So in Texas, you can be married under two ways. One is you can go to the courthouse, file a marriage license, and officially get married that way. Okay, that's the first way. Number two, okay, you can be common law married. Okay, and again, to be common law married, you're in agreement with that same-sex partner to be married. You live together, and you hold yourselves out to be married, and you tell the world that basically you're married as a same-sex
Is there a
couple.
time frame that how long you've been living together? They could be living together 6 months.
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
At least 6 months.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, I think that's a very good general time frame. Yeah. So, and I think so in the common law analysis, it's all fact driven. Okay, so it all kind of depends on what the facts are of that relationship that will determine if they are really common law married or not. Okay.
And
So
this law applies for both heterosexual and same-sex
mhm,
marriage.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move on to marital status. Okay, we got that. Talked about that. Okay. So let's say a marriage, same-sex marriage occurs, okay, after June 26, 2015. And that's important because that's the date that Obergefell decision was handed down, okay? So clearly in that situation, if you're a same-sex married couple after June of 2015, the property that you acquire together is considered community property, okay? So houses that you buy together, okay, are considered community property. So you'll be selling them as, husband and husband or wife and wife, okay? Before June 2015, okay, in my understanding of Obergefell, okay, there's a little bit of a gray area, but I still think if the Supreme Court is going to recognize those same-sex marriages prior to that date, okay, then I think they've got to recognize the community property status of that property prior to 2015 as well. So again, it's really going to be before 2015, it's going to be a case-by-case scenario. We're going to have to analyze all the relationship, when they acquired the property, how did they acquire the property, did they acquire it under one spouse or both spouses, and things like that. So it'll be, we have to look at that a little bit more carefully. Yep. Yep.
How about in cases that, let's say I have a property under my name only.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
my husband has to sign out for it.
Yeah,
Yes.
great question. That depends if your husband actually lived at that property too, as his homestead. Okay, so if he lived at the property, then yes, he's going to have to convey his ownership interest in that property during that sale. Okay, if he never lived there and you never declared this property as your homestead, then there is a chance, depending on how the underwriter looks at it, that you could sign off and convey your ownership interest as sort of as a married person dealing with your own, investment property. Okay,
So it
so
depends on the titles underwriters too,
mhm,
because different underwriters will require different things,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
So when I was still in the title industry, It doesn't matter if it's investment homes or one person or whoever. Let's just say you're the only one on title. When I close, they require us to have him sign what is called a non-homestead affidavit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Just
that
to be
is
secure.
California. That's how it is. in
Yeah.
California, But I
Mhm.
realize that in like in Michigan and Texas, it's not, it does not require when the other
Mhm.
party hasn't been,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
the primary residence.
So, and Cindy's right. So, at the very least, we'd have your husband sign the non-homestead affidavit. So we could have that, that sworn statement saying that he never lived there. And if a claim arises later, your husband says, "Hey, I actually did live there, and I didn't convey my homestead rights to the buyer," then we can just say, "Hey, remember this document, which is you said you never lived there, and that's why we wrote the title insurance the way that we did." Okay, so
Oh,
yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. Yes. Huh?
Okay, I'm still thinking about that 6 month process where you live with someone.
Mhm.
Is that just an automatic, or is it you go to the court and file and say we're now married? How do you prove that
Yeah.
somebody just doesn't
Yeah.
stay with somebody for a year and maybe
Yeah.
they're
That's a great question. So number one, even in the common law marriage situation, you can register your marriage as a true and lawful marriage with the county clerk. You can do that. Okay. If you don't do that, okay, generally you have the 6 month rule. Okay, but let's say 6 month in one day, right? How do you prove it to an underwriter, or how do you prove it to a realtor who's selling your home? It's You look at it on a case by case basis. Yeah, and then you'll just have to, you may have to, sort of paper it up for whoever you need to, the underwriting attorney who's going to look at it for title purposes, or things like that. So yeah,
you don't
it
have to.
yeah,
But the thing is, like,
yeah.
it depends on how you're calling each other in public eyes.
Mhm,
Okay, so that's what I've learned because I deal with a lot of common law marriages,
mhm,
couples. And basically, not just 6 months live together, then you automatically become a common law marriage. But
mhm,
it's just like, okay, even if you live together, but you're boyfriend and girlfriend can still live together.
mhm,
So as long as you just don't go to public and, announcing in public and your family and friends, oh, this is my husband
mhm,
or this is my boyfriend, right?
mhm,
But if you boyfriend, girlfriend, then you should have your own tax filing, right?
mhm,
Everything is separated. You can still live together, but again, nothing else is together. No kids together, no
mhm,
accounts together.
Accounts.
Yeah,
mhm,
accounts is very important. And
mhm,
I even heard this. There was a case. The other person deposits some money into the homeowner's account. They won that case
mhm,
because the other boyfriend, whatever you call it, deposited some money into your account.
mhm,
Now that person also has interest in your account.
mhm,
So that's also another aspect that you could also be common law married, right?
mhm. Yeah,
Now you got to
that's
keep in
like one
mind,
factor of many
yeah,
factors. Yeah.
there's a lot of different factors and
Mhm,
aspects. But also the thing is, once you are a common law married, and that means that you don't have a marriage license and all that stuff, you can't just say, oh, we no longer live together. We are now separated. No, you have to go through the same
mhm,
law and process as if you
mhm,
have a marriage license. And
mhm,
that means is you have to go to the court and get a divorce.
mhm,
Okay. So we have a lot of issues when it comes to that because we deal with a lot of minorities communities, and they're like, well, yeah, we're married, but
mhm,
we're not going to go through divorce. No, it's not your choice. Is if you're married, whether it's common law or legalized,
mhm,
you still have to go to the court and divorce.
mhm.
You
That's
know,
exactly right. Yeah.
because in Texas, there's
Mhm,
no such thing as living separately or we're separated or whatever. It's
mhm,
either you're married or you're single. That's it.
mhm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And another issue that comes up in that common law marriage situation too is if one of those spouses pass away, okay, as a seller, okay. So if they are common law married, okay, that means the intestacy laws in Texas also apply to same-sex couples as well. So if the husband passes away, the other husband, okay, and they have proven that they're common law married, that other husband, as long as they don't have any children together, should inherit all the rights of his married husband, okay, and can sell that property on his own, okay, using an heirship affidavit, or if the other husband has a will, then obviously that
Probation.
will takes place too. Yeah.
So the marriage certificate is not that important anymore.
I think
Not
it's
for
I think it, I
Texas.
think it's I think it's still super important because
It's
if you
cleaner process.
yeah, if you don't get
Yeah.
you don't get married officially with the marriage license and get it recognized, okay, you're leaving your spouse, okay, in some danger if you pass away, okay? So let me give you this example. So you've got the husband and husband, one husband passes away, okay, and this is in the common law marriage scenario, okay? But for whatever reason, okay, let's say it's like 7 months old, their marriage, common law marriage. Okay, they haven't had a chance to create the joint bank accounts yet. They haven't had a chance to, um, file the income tax return jointly yet, and things like that. So all those things that we kind of talked about the proof of being common law married may not be there.
Mhm.
Okay. Reason why that's important is if they can't prove that common law marriage and one husband passes away, okay, under Texas intestacy law, okay, if there's no common law marriage, the deceased husband's heirs inherit all of his property and not the other husband.
Not the surviving spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now in that scenario, what the intestacy laws would say is the owner of that property is now the surviving husband, okay, plus the heirs of the deceased husband. So imagine how hard it is to
It's a
sell
mess.
that property. It could be really really difficult, right? Especially if you have and this could happen too. The deceased husband's heirs had no idea that he was in a same-sex marriage. If you can imagine how difficult that situation now becomes. So it's really, really super important, in my opinion, if you're in a same-sex marriage, you have to go to the courthouse, get and apply for the marriage license. That's just my 2 cents.
That's probably the best.
Yeah.
The best
Yeah.
way. Like
Okay.
if you're gonna get married, whether common law or legalized married, and because you're gonna have to go through the same divorce process, might as well
Mhm.
just go to the court and get a marriage license.
Yeah.
So just imagine the common law marriage is already a messy deal.
Mhm.
Now add on top of that same-sex marriage, common law,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So it's
Right.
just creating a lot of messes, and
Mhm.
that's what I say. Like, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, because this topic, this law, could be very sensitive sometimes, right? Um, so I ran into the situation. They
Mhm.
don't like to be called as husband and husband or wife and wife.
Mm.
So I've learned from that situation that
Mm.
whenever we prepare the warranty deed for the vesting, we just put a married couple,
Mm. Mhm.
okay? Because it could be very sensitive. Like,
Mhm.
well,
You don't know
who is who? Right,
Mhm.
exactly. Well, I'm not the
Mm.
husband, so
Mhm.
it's a
Right.
very interesting topic and in transaction
Yeah, I
when
think
it
that
comes to that.
yeah, it's super super interesting, and so yeah, I think we all need to be careful about how we address people. That's really really part of their identity, their who they want to be, who they are, and we should be sensitive to that.
Especially as as a real estate professional,
Hmm.
right? We're in the business, so we have to abide by
Mhm.
professionalism. So
Yeah.
that personal stuff, you have to set that aside.
Right, right,
But
and again,
it's important the penalty.
yeah, how they
know,
fill it out.
How they,
Mhm.
state
Yeah.
your status.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, loan officers don't even meet the client in person. A lot of files that I've seen nowadays is all the
Mhm.
communication is like phones and emails, right? So I work with some loan officers here locally. What they do is they look at the tax returns to see, what the actual marriage status can be.
They have also can claim that they're married, but separate tax.
True, true.
Mhm.
too. So
Yeah.
the 1003, what they state in the 1003 is very important.
Yeah,
And also including gender.
right.
They don't want to
That's
disclose
true.
that and all that. So
Mhm.
we have to buy on
Mhm.
what they say in that 1003.
Right, their
Mhm.
attestation.
You know, the rest,
Yeah.
we don't know. How can we find out?
Right.
Yeah.
Everything they have to state it.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever they state, it is.
Mhm. See, I think it's super important too to be aware that, as same-sex couples are purchasing property, because, one of the big issues and protections for any homeowner in the state of Texas is their homestead rights. Okay, that's super important and incredibly powerful here in Texas. So the homestead rights are given to Texans. Okay, not only in the statutes of Texas, but also in the Texas Constitution as well. That's how important they are. And basically, what they say is, if this is your homestead, nobody can take it away. Okay, unless it's for taxes, liens, okay, properly filed liens, and things like that. You could have a big personal injury judgment against you. You could have a big lawsuit assessed against you, money damages, and things like that. But those creditors, okay, outside of the IRS, property taxes, rightful lien holders, they cannot ever take away your homestead.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's say you have a married same-sex couple, and they're just not sure. Okay, it's a common law marriage situation again. Okay, they're buying it. Title company doesn't really, do enough due diligence to, understand the issues, and so they just put the buyers as, John Smith and Michael Smith. Okay, the way it should be, what way it should be is John Smith, Michael Smith, a married couple. Okay, so that kind of puts the world on notice. Hey, title company, they did their due diligence. Whoever prepared the deed did their due diligence, and they are a married couple. Okay, so let's say you get that situation, and John Smith, Michael Smith, they bought this house now, and then all of a sudden, John Smith gets hit with a lawsuit or a credit card lawsuit for $25,000. Okay, now the issue becomes, okay, is that property their homestead or is it not? Okay, or is it just, are they brothers? Are they, the world doesn't know. Okay, so, and they haven't had a chance to file for their homestead exemption yet in the property records or through the appraisal district. Okay, so things like that, we have to be kind of aware of as we are working with, same-sex couples now, because they implicate, they have great ramifications on what happens, could happen in the future.
So if
Right.
I were you and I represent the clients, whether as a real estate realtor or a loan officer who's working on the current transaction, once you find out that the couple that you're working with is a same-sex marriage couple, I would recommend them to talk to an attorney, because they need to know that a couple things. We would recommend for them to have a marriage license, and we also recommend them to have a will, right? And this is why I say this, because one of my past experience,
Yeah.
we are dealing, when Charlie mentioned about the common law marriage, when someone passed away, there's two ways that you can clear someone's name off of title, right? It's either if they have a will, take it to the court and get it probated, or we prepare what is called the affidavit heirship, right? So it's basically they need two uninterested parties to be witnesses stating that this person is married to so whom and whom, things like that, whatever children they have. So one time I got a case. The spouse passed away. It was a same-sex marriage and common law. And the thing is, this is very interesting. So the deceased spouse that passed away, before he got married to the current spouse, he was married to a heterosexual person. So they have children outside of that marriage. okay, and they don't have a will,
Mhm.
and they don't have a marriage license as a same-sex marriage,
Mhm.
okay? So then when it comes to the affidavit heirship, it was a mess because he has children, you know, from the previous marriage. So
Mhm.
it was a mess.
It was a
It
mess.
was a mess. I
Yeah.
can tell you it was a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it's very it can be very complicated, you know. So, you know, I think the golden rule that everybody should remember is Texas does recognize same-sex marriages exactly the way that heterosexual marriages are recognized. All the laws of Texas are going to
Apply.
apply to same-sex marriages as well. You know, and that's really the law of the land now, you know, in the United States. And so, you know, it's really important that we understand that and how we deal with that. You know, we need to be very thoughtful of those people too, because as you can see, you know, there's really a lot of legal ramifications that and some negative that could happen if you know we don't help them out. Yeah.
And then it also depends on when they were married,
Hmm.
right? Some underwriters take this as
Mhm.
if they were married before the law passed in 2015,
Hmm.
they can tell us how they want to take title, like
Hmm.
either the individual, and this is on sellers, right?
Hmm.
Whether they're going to be individuals or they're
Hmm.
going to be a couple.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's some of the underwriters
Mhm.
giving some options like that as well.
Hmm.
So it's very important. It's a couple of things is 2015 is when the law passed, right?
Hmm.
Are they married? Are they not married? Then you're going to start applying all the other laws. Of course, it's not your job to know all the laws. That's why you have
Mhm.
title company attorneys involved.
Mhm.
But at least the minute you find out that your clients are same-sex marriage, by any means, you know, like I say, I would recommend them
Mhm.
to talk to a family attorney. Okay.
Mhm.
And then if they don't, then at least talk to an attorney at the title company that will handle the transaction. It's
Mhm.
just going to help your life so much easier.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
So Charlie,
Right.
you are, um, so if we have a client with, you know, well, I have a client that she has a property with a husband that they have already separated,
Mhm.
and she doesn't know how to sell that property. So
Mhm.
she asked me to, you know, I said, well, you need to talk to an attorney.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So can I?
Yes.
You,
Yes.
Is she here?
I don't,
She's here?
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know that. So
Right.
it's good that, you know, that I came
Yeah.
today and see
Yeah.
if you can help her out.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, it really depends. Is that their homestead? Did the husband
No.
live
she
there?
lives in somewhere else.
Yeah.
She lived with her daughter
Mhm.
and he is with someone else.
Mhm.
So, but they are still married.
Mhm.
They bought that house when they were married.
Uh-huh.
Well, they
Yeah.
are still married, but now that house is rented.
Mhm.
So she wants to, you know,
Yeah.
It is still community property.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
community property.
Still community
Mhm.
property. So if he already passed and there's no will, then that's the affidavit heirship. And if he
well, she
has
wants
children,
to,
Well, he's still alive.
oh, he's still alive.
Yeah, he's just
Oh, he's still alive. Okay.
yeah.
So there's no common divorce law?
No, unfortunately, they're not. Yeah, you have to go through the courts. Yeah. Yeah.
so she wants to, you know, liquidate that property and she can
Mhm.
buy
Yeah.
another house.
But she needs to.
She
because
needs
if
to
she buys
divorce.
another house,
He
Right.
still has to
he
sign.
still has.
To
That's
sign.
why
Mhm.
the house that she's living in is under her daughter's name.
Okay.
Mhm.
But she wants to liquidate that,
Mhm.
the other property, so they can combine both together and buy a better house.
Yeah.
Is he not willing to divorce?
I don't know, but she is, they have been separated.
I know.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
so
have to
in
go
the-
take the first step as divorce, right?
Yeah. So
Yes.
I think in the divorce, you know, in the
Yeah,
divorce
she needs-
decree,
She needs some,
she needs to get divorced.
She divorced,
Yeah.
and then they can
an attorney advice.
they can
and,
Mhm.
you know,
mention
go
that
in
property,
steps.
how to liquidate it.
I don't want to do that. But Bobby, can I recommend her to you, or you just?
I mean, I can probably help her with sort of understanding what the issues are a little bit, but I don't do divorces, you know. Yeah, so that would be something she'd have to find a divorce attorney on her own. Yeah,
Mhm.
She has to divorce. First.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so either one
It
is
goes into the divorce, right?
Yeah, it does.
Property.
All the community property and yeah, every bit of that would be sort of under the jurisdiction of the divorce, and then the divorce decree will lay out who gets what, um, and yeah, and that would be one of the issues. Or she just talks to the husband and says, "Hey, we want to sell this house," and maybe they can negotiate some term, and says, "Hey, if you agree to sell the property, then I'll give you $100,000." Something like that.
No.
Yeah.
But the
He's
thing
not
is,
even
moving
giving- he's
forward,
not even
yeah.
giving child support.
Hmm.
They have
Yeah.
photos.
But then all the
Yeah.
purchases, all the transactions moving forward still require his signature.
Yeah. She needs to get divorced as quickly
problem.
as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's it's still
Come
community.
here, and your attorney, right, you can recommend
There's a
them.
lot of divorce attorneys.
There's
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
But
Just
but the good one. I
throw a
mean,
stone.
like, an honest one.
That's a little bit hard. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding. So, but anyway.
There's a lot of divorces
Yeah.
since the pandemic.
Well,
I don't know
great.
how many divorce decrees I've read and reviewed
Yeah.
every single day during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
They can't stand each other, for that long.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, any other questions, please? Anybody have
It
anything?
also
Yeah.
happens, like there's a common law marriage.
Yes.
When, when they get into a divorce or a fight, even though they're not legally married,
Hmm.
one can always say that we were never a couple. They can always say that, right?
One party.
One party can always say, have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. They
So
could.
we, in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. That the very difficult
because it's
situation,
very
but if they've
challenging.
yeah, and again, remember each case has to be analyzed and reviewed on a case by case basis. So let's say that common law married couple has been together for 15 years, lived together, owned property together as, a married couple, filed joint tax returns for 15 years. It'd be really hard for one party to say that they are not legally married in Texas at that point, And so if they just separate, then they separate. But if one of them tries to sell that house, it could be an issue.
But it's
Yeah.
remember, it's how they hold themselves in public as well.
Mhm.
So by that time, if one person say, "Well, I'm not married to her," right? Well, if they've been together for a while, friends and family, everybody knows they're married, right? Then they can bring those as witnesses as well. So that's something you gotta think about too. It can't just be like, well, in Texas, you are married, whether it's on paper or you common law married, you are married. That's a fact that I'm trying to explain it to a lot of people many, many times is,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then sometimes at the closing table, I have to stop the closing because now she's changing her story, right?
Mhm.
Oh, we're not married, but we share the same house, same room, same bed, and all that
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was a
Yeah.
fun situation, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
boyfriend, girlfriend, or married. If you
Mhm.
decide to marry, go get a marriage license. That's the
So
easiest and cleanest way.
and there are underwriting title documents that ask about marriage in every
Yep.
closing. Okay, but so the two things that I learned really quickly to never joke about at a closing. Okay, one is money. Okay, nobody ever thinks any joke about money at a closing is ever really funny. Like, so I learned that pretty fast. So, for example, like if a buyer's got to bring in, $120,000, and that's what's on the CD. Sometimes, early on I would have joked, hey, well, why don't you give me an extra 25,000 while you're at it? No, nobody ever laughs at things like that. They just don't ever think that's funny. Number two, any jokes about marital status as well. So, and that is nobody ever thinks that's funny. Like I would just say, "All right, sir, do you remember the exact date? You remember where you got married? What was your wife wearing?" That kind of stuff is never funny. you know? So anyway, so I learned pretty quickly. Yeah, so I learned pretty quickly that you just don't make any jokes about money and you don't joke about marital status. I keep it pretty simple. I said, "Hey, you guys fill this part out of the document. Oh, you
Yeah.
guys let me know when you were married." you know, and things like that. So,
Because they have to provide you the information
Yeah.
verbally,
Yeah.
like, before closing.
mhm,
But then at closing, they always have to fill out and sign, and it
Yeah.
needs to be notarized,
Mhm.
the marital status affidavit,
mhm.
right?
yeah.
So one time, you know what, I have to excuse myself from the closing room because apparently the wife thought that she was the first wife
Oh boy.
until it goes to closing, and they
Yeah.
just recently got married like a few months ago, so they're
Uh-huh.
still newlyweds, And then the questionnaire was like he was married and divorced like 3 times before her,
Mhm.
and all you can hear next time was like, "What? I thought I'm your first wife." I was like, "Oh, let me excuse myself." That closing took
Yeah.
4 hours, so
Yeah.
finally they have to sign because
Mhm.
of the closing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was right. It could be just be
Yeah.
honest, please,
Yeah.
man, woman, honest.
Yeah.
Be honest with your partner because
Yeah.
you don't want to delay the closing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was funny, but
Yeah.
it's not funny.
It's not funny. Nobody. Yeah. It's funny now. Yeah, but yeah, I can.
'Cause she
It
was
makes
like,
it makes me nervous just hearing that story. To be
'cause she's
honest.
like, I
Yeah.
thought I'm your first wife. You told me I'm the first person that you married, and now it ended up I'm the third or fourth or something like that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Yeah. 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 And you also have situations like this where the sellers are in the middle of a divorce.
Mhm.
Okay. And
It's not final.
yeah, it's not finalized. And then, normally in those situations, I try to schedule, one spouse at one time, the other spouse at a different time. But I've had situations where sometimes they want to just come in together, and you just need to like leave the room because they're like one little thing leads to another discussion of, hey, why did I only get so and so? It should have been. Remember that time when I bought whatever and this and that. So it can explode pretty quickly. But
So my last
yeah.
thing for you is if you
Mhm.
represent your client, especially sellers who goes through divorce in the
Mhm.
middle of divorce, also in Texas, like I say, either you're married, you're not married. So if the divorce is not finalized, you are
Mhm.
still married.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if you deal with someone that is in the middle of the divorce, then you got to make sure that, okay, is your other soon to be ex gonna come to the closing, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes the agent will call us and say, we recommend, because I represent the wife and the other person, like they have different attorneys as well. So it's like, could you please have them sign separately at a different time, because, or they're okay to be at the same closing table,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
But you got to learn and find out. And even if you were working with one person, I would recommend you to kind of, in a way, talk to the other person too, if you can. It's just going to make the closing transaction so much smoother
Mhm. Yeah.
because you don't want last minute issues. Like, I don't want to sign
No good.
because again, the divorce
Yeah.
is not finalized.
Yeah.
I don't want to sign,
Have you
right?
ever seen two agents representing the sellers, like one representing the wife, one representing the husband together?
I haven't closed one, but I've heard of that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I've heard-
haven't. I
Yeah.
haven't. I dealt with
Yeah.
2 attorneys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Attorneys, I understand.
Right.
Sometimes.
I don't think you can. Can you?
Well, you have a team.
Yeah.
You have a team in the same office. Like
Yeah.
maybe one person
Yeah.
relates better with the one.
True, because like
Yeah.
sometimes if you go on like MLS, it will say like listing agent 1, listing agent 2. So it could be.
Mhm. Yeah.
None of us have that experience, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. Any other questions? I'm sure you ask us when you run into one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can call from.
Yeah, call
Absolutely.
Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Cindy. She knows.
Yeah.
She's just as smart as any attorney that I know. So
I
Yeah.
retire.
Yeah. yeah. But thank you guys very much. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you,
Thank you,
Daniel.
Charlie.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.